Welcome everyone to the MA21 webinar. My name is Diane Huggen. I will be the moderator for this webinar. In January of this year at our webinar, we had asked folks for input and we had asked everyone to share ideas of possible webinar topics that the MA21 Action Group could focus on in planning the 2026 webinars. And one of the ideas that was brought up was assistive technology and how it can help self-directed participants work on and reach their goals. And so we took that idea and immediately planned for it to be our March webinar topic. And so with that, I want to just say thank you to Cheryl Farley, who is actually now on our MA21 Action Group, and Areeba Khan. They will go ahead and introduce themselves before each of their presentations, but they will focus on assistive technology and self-direction and reaching your goals. And then after the two presentations, we will have some time for open discussion. So let me just go ahead and get us going here. So what is MA21? The Massachusetts Alliance for 21st Century Disability Policy was formed back in 2007. And the focus has always been on the protecting the rights of people with disabilities to self-direct and through its efforts help pass the Real Lives Law that was in 2014. MA21 is a partnership of self-advocates, family members, other stakeholders, and disability advocacy organizations, including those listed on this slide. I should have mentioned that we will go ahead and send a recording along with a copy of the slides to everyone who is in attendance today, but we will also add the information to the MA21 document library. We encourage you to visit the MA21 website. The link I will put in the chat and definitely go to the document library, which has so much information to help you understand the self-directed policy, the Real Lives Law, and other information to help with your advocacy around this topic. I won't read this slide, but I did want to include it so that everyone will have the link to go to the DDS website. This is, in my opinion, a great definition of what the DDS self-directed service model is. So with that, I will go ahead and turn the slides over to Areeba. Areeba Khan is with the Northeast ARC, and I will go ahead and let her introduce herself and share a little bit more.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Diane, for that introduction. My name is Areeba Khan. I am the Director of Assistive Technology at the Northeast ARC. The Northeast ARC is essentially a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping individuals with disabilities live their fullest, most independent lives. And so let me just adjust the control. All right. Okay. So first of all, what is assistive technology? Assistive technology is any device or service that can increase independence. A device could be a physical device like an iPad, a pencil grip. And the service could be just additional training, like how to use that device, training for mom, dad, staff. And so assistive technology can range from low tech to mid tech to high tech. And low tech consists of pencil grips, rocker knives. High tech can consist of smart ovens and iPads. there is an infinite amount of possibilities of what assistive technology can be considered. So today I will be talking about the what the internal process looks like for assistive technology evaluations to give insight to families, specifically with self-direction on what it looks like on our end, so that you guys can have a better understanding of what to advocate for or understand why a process might be taking too long. And so DDS has the assistive technology services to be able to help people be as independent as possible. And sometimes DDS is able to pay for devices. Recently, DDS has a, a showcase that they prioritize high tech for these evaluations, essentially because a lot of low tech equipment out there, it can be easily acquired, costs less than $20. And so it is highly recommended that even if an AT provider is able to recommend low tech, it would be most likely on the individual or their families to purchase that equipment. And one of the benefits is that that equipment comes immediately. The process for AT evaluations can take a while. And so if something can help a person, it's easily affordable. I would highly recommend families pursue it on their own immediately. So let me see. So what assistive technology services are out there? There are quite a few. I'm going to talk about three services today, and you guys are more than welcome to ask me questions at the end of each topic. Um, so the first topic will be assistive technology lending libraries. These are spaces all throughout the state of Massachusetts that have devices that people can borrow. The next topic I will speak to is assistive technology evaluations. So what an evaluation looks like specifically for assistive technology. And then another subset is remote support evaluations. These are evaluations specifically to help a person live independently with limited staff intervention. So the goal is essentially to not have staff around as often so that the person can learn to be independent on their own. So, assistive technology lending libraries. Like I mentioned, they are all over the state of Massachusetts. They are open to the public. So anybody can walk into the Northeast Arc. It doesn't have to be an individual with a disability. It doesn't have to be somebody with the Northeast Arc. It could be the public. And the reason why we have these libraries is because technology is really expensive. And we don't want someone to buy an expensive device, try to use it, and then realize that it wasn't a good fit for them. So what assistive technology lending libraries do is we try to acquire a lot of devices that people might be interested in trying, give them the ability to take it home, try it out in their own home environment, see whether or not it's a good fit, and use that information to buy a device on their own. And this is essentially to prevent device abandonment. Of course, it's not just on the user, it also depends on the family being supportive, staff being supportive, willing to learn. All of those elements contribute to the adoption of the device. But at least the libraries can give people the opportunity to see it, try it out, and have a little bit of opportunity to determine whether or not it's a good fit for them. One thing I do want to mention is that this is a very fast process. So there's very limited wait lists for devices. It's very easy to just go in, try a device, take it home that same day. And so this is something that I would highly recommend people start exploring online. Like I mentioned, there are lending libraries all over Massachusetts, all the way in Pittsfield, two in Worcester, one in Danvers, and one in Boston. And one thing that I really value and appreciate about these lending libraries is that they all work together. So if there's a device in the Pittsfield Lending Library, and it's not available in any other lending library. What you can do is you can ask that device to be delivered to Danvers. That way you don't have to go all the way to Pittsfield to get it. It could be transferred to a library close to you. Another element, um, the Boston Lending Library, it's in the heart of Boston, right next to South Station, very limited parking. It's very hard to go in and get a device. So devices from that lending library can be transferred to Danvers, where we have ample parking. We're located in the mall. It's very easy to just walk in and you don't have to worry about accessibility and climbing stairs. So our goal is to make sure that it's easy to get devices into your hands so that you can try devices and see whether or not it's a good fit. And so before I move on, if anybody has any questions about lending libraries, feel free to let me know. I can see if there's any in the chat. Doesn't seem like it. Okay, so I'll move on. So now I'm going to talk about evaluations. There are two types that I'm going to talk about today, assistive technology evaluations and remote supports evaluations. As I mentioned earlier, assistive technology evaluations, they can be for physical devices that people essentially interact with more on a day-to-day basis. So it could be a smart pen or a iPad, um, or a fall detection device. So there's a wide range of devices available. If all I have to do is just research what devices are online that could benefit a client, and I don't have to stay within a certain brand, you know? And so this essentially opens up the possibilities of what an assistive device could be. And so there's also no requirement needed for an assistive technology evaluation. If somebody could benefit from exploring what devices out there are beneficial for them, there's no reason why we would say, no, actually, we can't move forward. And so remote supports evaluations, on the other hand, are a little bit different because remote supports are devices that essentially the goal is to help the person live independently without staff present. And so these devices can consist of sensors, a tablet that can access staff, and other devices like medication reminders to help that person not be dependent on staff. Unfortunately, we are constricted with remote supports evaluations to be with the provider that is working with that organization. So the Northeast Arc, we work with Simply Home. I'll talk a little bit more about them later. They essentially are the vendor that we work with. So whatever technology they have is the technology that we can recommend for the client. If there's a device, like a different sensor that could be really beneficial from a different company, unfortunately, we can't use that. So that is one barrier. However, one element is that you need to have an assistive technology evaluation to recommend remote supports before you can have a remote supports evaluation. So that is the requirement. And those are the differences between assistive technology evaluation and remote supports. I noticed there was a mention in the chat, semi-independent people ineligible for remote supports. So Um, the people that are not eligible for remote supports are individuals that have 24/7 staffing. If you live in a group home that is staffed 24/7, then you would not be eligible. Um, Aside from that, I'm not 100% sure. That is dependent on DDS in terms of who else wouldn't be eligible, but the one thing that I know is that if you're 24/7 staffed, it wouldn't really make sense to have remote supports because the staff has to be there. Um, all right. And then John Williams, what does an assistive technology evaluation cost? We've been waiting for months for DDS to fund our referral. DDS office says they don't have any funding for an evaluation for our daughter. Okay, so that is a good question. What I will say is that different area offices have different funding. Sometimes area offices allocate more funding to other elements. For example, one area office that we work with, they send us a lot of assistive technology referrals. But another area office, they do not send us that many assistive technology referrals because they decided to allocate their funding elsewhere. Um, so I'm not too sure on in terms of how much it costs on their end. Um, but I do think that when it comes to not having enough funding, that's dependent on the area office and their decisions of where they plan to allocate. So I would recommend continuing to speak to DDS as they would be the best individuals to be able to push this forward, which I'll speak to a little bit more in the next slide. What happens if we had an assistive technology evaluation before remote supports was created and envisioned? Oh, that's a really great question. And I will touch on that in a bit. Um, okay. My son lives independently and has remote supports. That's wonderful. What is the name of the sole provider for these supports that you mentioned? Um, Okay, so the name, which I will also talk about later, is the vendor that we work with is Simply Home. In the past, we worked with Safe and Home. Um, but basically, they both have very similar systems. I'll speak to that a little bit more in the future. So I'm going to get started by talking about the assistive technology evaluation process. And so in order to get started for an assistive technology evaluation, the person that we are most dependent on is the DDS service coordinator. They are responsible for submitting an assistive technology referral to their area office. And essentially, to my understanding, I'm not too sure on what the process looks like, but it inevitably gets sent to the head of the area office, and the head of the area office sends it to us, the AT provider. Once we receive it, we send them a service request form. They sign it, send it back to us, and we may either get started or we may ask them to enroll the client in their electronic management system just so that we are able to get billed. The reason why I am stating these elements is because sometimes a service coordinator may say, I submitted an AT evaluation, and families might be wondering, hey, it's been quite a while. Why is it taking so long? These are the elements that might take so long, where it has to go to the head of the area office, and then the provider has to receive it, and then they have to send the form to the area office again, wait for their signature again, and then wait for them to enroll in EIM. It's unfortunately it can take some time, but I just wanted to let families know like this is the reason why you may not have received anyone reaching out to you. But once the process gets started, then the provider or I will reach out to the service coordinator and I'll say, hey, we want to start an evaluation. Who would be the best person to contact to include in this evaluation? So the service coordinator may give me the parents' emails, the any relevant staff or any relevant clinicians that have been working with the individual. And so what I'll do is I will create a virtual meeting and we'll essentially talk about the client's goals. We can get a better understanding of the client, and we'll schedule an in-home evaluation. And so the reason why I do a virtual meeting first is because sometimes a referral comes in and it will say one thing, like this person could benefit from communication. Um, in my head, I think, okay, this person probably needs an AAC device. But after doing an intake, we learn, oh, actually, they just want more training with advocating for themselves or time management. And so this virtual meeting helps us understand, okay, who are the necessary clinicians needed for this evaluation? And so this virtual meeting, it can sometimes have the client involved or not. It's not required. But an in-home evaluation does have to have the client present. And so we schedule the in-home evaluation, and that's where I get to see the client in their home environment. I get to better understand what the client's goals are. I sometimes may bring technology from the lending library to try out. And so another benefit of the home environment is being able to see other elements where the person could benefit from technology that they may not realize. Or just to see if the devices that we're planning on recommending could actually fit inside the home or are compatible with the person's devices that they have already. And so once it's determined what devices may be beneficial for the client, the provider will write up a report, they'll make their recommendations. And so in an assistive technology evaluation, you can recommend like a singular device, such as a iPad. You could recommend a subscription, such as a communication app that requires a subscription or a boundary care watch, many different devices. Um, we could also recommend, hey, this person could benefit from a remote supports evaluation. Um, and lastly, we can also recommend assistive technology training. Sometimes a person has a device, has all the devices they need, but they just need more training on them. Or maybe it's not the person, maybe their mom and dad need more training, or maybe staff need more training. And so one thing that I really appreciate DDS for is ensuring that we have time allocated not only to give the person the device, but also to train all relevant stakeholders. Because everyone, when it comes to a device, it's not just dependent on the client. Mom and dad have to be on board. They have to be comfortable using the technology so that they can feel comfortable helping their family use the technology. And same thing with staff. So before I move on to remote supports, yes, simply home. Okay. As part of the assistive technology evaluation, can you also visit the client at their day program to see how AT could improve participation in the day program? Yes, yes, you can. Um, so recently DDS has recommended to stay within the guidelines of what the evaluation is recommended for. So, for example, if I receive a communication evaluation, it is recommended to focus solely on the communication evaluation. Um, because DDS is able to anticipate what different types of devices are out there for communication, what their cost is. So DDS will know, okay, this is essentially the range that we will end up paying after this evaluation. Um, so if I go out for a communication evaluation and I say, hey, this person could benefit from actually a medication reminder, DDS may say, well, this wasn't what the referral was for, because now DDS has to deal with a whole subscription for a medication device when they had submitted a communication evaluation. Um, so that is one element. So if the goal of the evaluation does not require visiting a day program, then it would not. So then we may not visit a day program. But for example, for our communication evaluations, our speech language pathologist is often visiting the home and the day program. So it depends on the client if a visit to the day program is necessary. Okay, given that tech is here to stay for all of society, it seems like ATEval should be included as part of the transition to adulthood process and not to be left to months of delay after 22. I agree. All right. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about remote supports. So remote supports are devices and services that can enable an individual to live independently. Emphasis on live independently. So it could consist of a tablet where staff can be accessed 24/7 if the individual needs assistance. It could consist of a sensor to detect if the individual has fallen and needs help, or it could consist of a sensor to detect if the individual has not gotten out of bed all day and they need a push or someone to check in on them. And so here is a key element that I believe was asked initially. When a DDS service coordinator is submitting an assistive technology referral, the AT referral has to, it has to have remote supports checked off. If I receive a referral and I think that someone could benefit from remote supports, I have to ask DDS to send me a new AT referral where remote supports is checked off. One element is the fact that remote supports is expensive. And so DDS should anticipate what types of recommendations are going to be made financially. And they want to be able to have that heads up, you know? And so that's why I cannot recommend remote supports if remote supports is not checked off as an option to explore in the AT referral. So if somebody has already received an AT referral for a regular assistive technology evaluation and you're interested in remote supports, DDS would have to send us a new AT referral through that service coordinator with the remote supports checked off. Sometimes we receive referrals just solely for remote supports. And so when I receive that referral, I will email the service coordinator, ask for all the contact information for people interested in the evaluation, and I will also include our remote supports team. So then we'll have our virtual meeting, we'll have our in-person meeting, and if I feel like this person is a good fit for remote supports, I will write up a document and send it to DDS, and they will essentially approve it. And so once DDS approves it, I will let our remote supports team know, and they will then initiate their version of the remote supports process. And it's very similar to our process where they will bring the vendor, in our case, Simply Home there. They'll talk about the different devices, they'll create a plan. How often will they be checking in with staff, or what type of devices would be embedded? I'll speak more to the different types of devices on the next slide. So, just a summary of the process. In the AT referral, make sure remote supports is checked off, and if the person is a good fit, DDS will approve it. Um, okay, so remote supports. So our provider is Simply Home. They are a provider that has a variety of sensors. These sensors can include a door window sensor to know when someone has left their home, a flood sensor to know if somebody left the water on and they forgot to shut it off, an automatic stove shut-off sensor. If a person walks away and the stove is on, it'll automatically shut it off. A Ring doorbell, a pressure sensor. This could be in their bed or on a chair to know if somebody got up from bed or got up from their chair. It could also be under a rug to know if somebody fell off their bed and they need help. And it can also Simply Home also has a tablet, which gives access to staff 24/7 if there's any need for assistance. And so all of these sensors are built to keep someone safe, and also to be able to contact assistance if anything were to happen. For example, if somebody were to fall in the shower. And so, um, not everyone needs each and every single sensor, but I think that this is a great system to be able to support a person to live independently and know that they will be taken care of if anything were to go wrong. All right, let me just check the chat. Is there a list of what functions you can list on the AT referral? You mentioned and communication and remote supports. What types of functions can AT address? That's a good question. So, assistive technology can address like organization, time management, um, activities of daily living, medication management. It's pretty broad. I think so. On the AT referral, I'm sorry. On the AT referral, there is a text box, and although there are categories, normally what providers look at is what's in the text box. And so the text box sometimes says this person could benefit from an AT referral. Okay, very broad. We'll probably just look at all the categories. Or sometimes it says this person could benefit from an AAC device. That's how we know, okay, this is just communication. Or this person could benefit from cooking aids. So we'll just focus on adaptive cooking. Um, so yeah, it's not the categories that are really constricting. It's basically what the service coordinator writes down that constricts us based off of what we are allowed to explore. And so my last slide, um, just essentially saying like when DDS approves remote supports or when they approve assistive technology, the devices will be installed in the client's homes and everyone will be trained on the device, clients, parents, staff. And if things are not working, adjustments will be made. There will be follow-up training sessions. Maybe we could explore other devices and submit addendums to see what would be a better fit. Um, and our goal is obviously to help the person be as independent as possible. So we really try to make sure we focus on addressing all elements, if it's the technology, if it's the training, if it's education, whatnot. So that is everything about remote supports, assistive technology, and our libraries. Are there any questions aside from that?
I can see that you addressed all the questions in the chat. And if there are any questions that come up relating to Areeba's presentation, we can certainly address those at the end of Cheryl's presentation. Areeba, that was wow, that was incredible. A lot of great information that you shared. Thank you so much. Um, uh, it, so there was a question that just came in the chat. How much does remote support cost with a tablet?
That is a good question. Um, I'm not 100% sure. I think it depends on the person and their plan. Um, but I will say that it can be quite expensive. Because remote sports is a subscription, so it can be in the thousands. That
Where,
is, yeah.
Areeba, where could they get that information?
Um, it's a good question. I think Simply Home might be the best company to reach out to regarding that information. It depends on the provider.
Okay,
Uh, yeah.
all right. Thank you.
Mhm. What I can do is I can give remote control to Cheryl. All right, so Cheryl now has control of the screen.
There we go. All right. I have control. Thank you. All right. So hi everyone. My name is Cheryl Farley. I am an independent assistive technology consultant. This is my 16th year in private practice, and I primarily work with the school age population, so preschool through age 22. And I my primary role is to provide assistive technology evaluations, training, and support for students, parents, families, team, and staff. I am also a parent of a now 24-year-old young adult who is participating in the participant directed program model. So I wear two hats in this presentation. I'm coming in as an assistive technology consultant, but also my section is going to be focusing on how we, as a family household, but specifically how our son is using assistive technology as part of his participant directed program. Um, just just as a little heads up, I normally present this. This is like an hour and a half presentation. So I'm looking at my timer. I've got 20 minutes. So it's going to be a very condensed presentation because there's so much technology out there. As Areeba was just showing, the evaluation is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many different domains that people can look at. So what I just wanted to do, I think how we discussed this was I was just going to give a snapshot of how we're using this in real life to give you a starting point to kind of think about, oh, how could I use this for my person? So what I'm showing you as far as assistive technology is just a very, very small portion. Um, it's not going to be all inclusive. Um, okay. So before we get started, I did want to touch upon because one of the comments, one of the questions in the chat was about having your AT evaluations. So one of the things that I do as an AT provider is I always highly recommend that before my student ages out, whether they're, graduating at 18 or aging out at 22, is that they have an AT evaluation before they leave the public school system. Couple of reasons why, but the primary one is that in the school system, in AT evaluation, we're beholden by our Net 30 and Net 45 dates to have an evaluation completed. In the adult world, the adult world is not beholden to that. So as far as the ability to, I putting in the request, it's going to take a while to get it. If you have it done before you go to leave the public school system, it at least gives you a baseline of where to start. Because at that point, usually we know what adult service model the student is going to be moving into. So I don't know how many of you on the call or who might be watching this recording are still in the 18 to 22, but I usually highly recommend it that that happens. All right. Okay, I'm going to look to see if I can see the chat box also, but I can't right now. Okay, so oh,
Cheryl, I can let you know.
oh, okay, great. Thank you. All right, Northeast Dock, SharePoint wants to, I have no idea what this is doing. No camera permission. I have no idea. Okay, so anyway, the first thing I'm going to talk about is using technology for vocational skills. So when we're out in the adult world and we're doing our ISP, we're usually looking at the three pillars of transition. So we're looking at our our vocational goals, continued education, activities of daily living, community, and leisure. So under the vocational, what what we really want to do is look at what technology can we use that's going to support our person to be able to succeed at work. And work can be many things. Work can be volunteering, work can be paid employment, it can be full-time, it can be part-time. My son right now, he's doing 4 different volunteer jobs. He's not getting paid for any of those, but we treat those and he treats those as his job. This is his vocation. So we're implementing what assistive technology can he use to be as independent as he can be within these different workplace situations. So some of the things that we've used with him is using, some technology that we consider UDL, Universal Design Technology. So using Google Keep for him to keep his login and time tracking. Using an app like Book Creator to track work tasks using video and audio. And customizing iPhone alarms for a work schedule. This picture shows an image of Book Creator, which is a app. It's available for the iPad, iPhone. It's also available on computers. And in this example, I was using this with a student who their dream job was to work at the Biddy and Beau's coffee shop that just opened up in Providence. So using person-centered planning, we worked out, okay, what will she need to do in order to build up her skills in order to get a job there? And what we did with this is within this book creator, we were able to create pages that listed out all of the steps that she would need to do in her job. She was responsible for, restocking the shelves. She was responsible for grinding the coffee. She was responsible for taking orders. When it was time to learn how to use the coffee maker, we were able to find a video of how to use the coffee machine and insert it in her book creator doc so that she could access that instead of always needing to wait for someone to be standing next to her to do it. She could watch the video either before her shift started or even while she was there at support. We were also able to put in audio notes to be reminders like, hey, remember, when you're, counting out when you're handing out your order, remember to say, thanks for joining us today. So lots of different ways that we could customize some of those built-in supports and prompts without it being person dependent. Oh. All right, Areeba, I see. Oh, wait, hold on. There we go. All right. In this example, this is how my son uses his notes app for his job at the food pantry. So until he memorized the list, he used the notes app first. He needed the code to get into the building. And so before he memorized it, we had it in his notes app. And it was a locked note. So if anyone had taken his phone, the only way that they could access it was via his Face ID. So we did protect it that way. But he used that. Then we took a picture of the packing list and he was able to insert it into his note and he was able to use the speak selection feature to have the note read aloud to him. If his boss leaves a handwritten note, what he can do is he can open up his camera app and he can use the scan text feature, which will actually scan the handwriting. It will convert that into text to speech also. So again, instead of him needing to have his job coach or his boss read everything that needs to be done that day, he can just take a picture on his phone and he can use either the Notes app or the live OCR on his camera in order to access that. Okay. All right. Any questions on that before I get going? Any questions, Diane?
Let me see. We have a couple of comments, but I'm focused only on questions right now.
Questions. Okay. All right. Okay. The next has to do with your activities of daily living. And these are the things that, when I'm working in the school building, um, we try to work on them in the classroom setting or in their, transition center setting. But some of these things, they more organically work when the student is at home or in their living environment. So some of the things we look at is having those visual daily schedule apps. And these can, again, be anywhere from utilizing your calendar on your Android or your Apple phone up to students that need more visual support. So we have the First Then visual schedule that I'm able to put in images. I'm also able to put in videos. So if one of the things here is, feed the dog. We were able to actually insert, when you tap on feed the dog, we were able to insert a video of this is what you need to do to feed the dog. And we were able to videotape that. Mom was able to videotape it at home. So the student was able to actually see, okay, it's not just some random video. This is actually in my kitchen with the dog food that my dog eats, with the dog bowl that my dog uses, in the location that my dog is eating in. So that also gives you that video support. So again, we're not depending on a person having to walk you through all of the steps. For people that don't need to have a digital format of it, but do respond better to a paper format, we've created custom schedules using images either on BoardMaker. BoardMaker is very popular. A lot of people use that in school. But another program that I personally like more for the adult population is Lesson Picks. It's more affordable. It's only $40 a year for that subscription versus Boardmaker, which can be over $100 for that. And the images from Lesson Picks, board maker symbols, they're very, I like to call them the stick figure family. It's a lot of stick figures, very abstract, whereas lesson picks, the drawings are actually of people. And so they're more realistic, more lifelike, they're more mature. So a lot of times it's easier for families to be able to use lesson picks, and they already have all of the templates made up for scheduling. So it's very easy for families to go in and use. So I'd like to recommend that. And then there's also symbol sticks. So depending on if if your child is using an AAC device, they might already be, if they're using, a Tobii Dynavox, they're going to be using BoardMaker symbols. If they're using Touch Chat, it might be more of the symbol sticks. So I also like to have families, if their person is already very comfortable with a symbol set, to carry over when creating those visual schedules to have them be similar. So there's not a lot of new learning that needs to take place. Okay. Something else that we've used as a family as far as those ADLs is using the supports that are part of the Autism Housing Pathways website. I know they are now part of the Federation for Children with Special Needs, but they provide a lot of valuable information related to housing supports and getting people ready for independent living. And the way I also frame this too is a lot of times people think that independent living just means that person is living independently on their own in their own place. I always rephrase that is to be how can we help support our person be as independent as they can possibly be? Because at the end of the day, no one is truly independent. We all live in an interdependence with each other. I don't live independently of my husband. He does not live independently of me. Now, are there certain tasks that we do independently of each other? Absolutely. But there are other things that we are as a household are very interdependent on. So I'd like to always remind people of that even if your person is still living at home, what are some things that they can do independently while still having that interdependence within the household? And the Autism Housing Pathways gives a lot of nice sections support, showing visual checklists, showing the different technology supports that people can use in the house. The other thing that I really like is their modified adolescent autonomy checklist. And this we actually use during the ISP planning. And it's really long. So we always break it down into small parts, but it's a concrete way to look at what are those skills that my person can do independently, can't do independently, and where are they kind of in between. And it also helps us figure out when we're doing person-centered planning to write out what are our goals for the ISP. This becomes a very crucial piece of that under the ADL section. So it gives you that checklist, because kind of going back to how, AT, when you check off, oh, I want to do assistive technology, it's such a broad, area. If you do something like this modified adolescent autonomy checklist, then you could say, okay, these are the areas that we need to work on in ADLs. When I'm requesting that assistive technology evaluation, is there any AT related to these ADLs that we're going to be working on, so that can help pinpoint it for you? Okay. Another thing under the ADLs that we've used is using the unique learning system transition curriculum. This is a wide-ranging transition curriculum program. But one of the small areas that, I wanted to highlight is for budgeting and time management, because that's another piece that, you know, again, we might be teaching them those skills when they're in school, but then when they transfer out into the adult world, again, depending on what their housing situation is, what is their awareness of budgeting and time management? What I really love about this system is that it's a leveled program. So they have 3 levels. So depending on your person's reading level, level of comprehension, you can adjust all of the activities for that. They're also switch accessible. So if you have a student or your person, sorry, I always go to student because I'm in school mode, that is accessing their technology either through eye gaze or through switch, whether it's single switch or a double switch access. Um, all of these activities are available that way. They all have built-in text-to-speech and accessibility features, and they also have activities that are geared towards people that are currently using an AAC device. So I find that it is extremely accessible for a wide variety of users. And again, it's going to address all of the transition areas um, that are available. Okay. Another one, and this is one that we just started using, is the Transition Edge curriculum. This is more of a video-based curriculum, and it focuses on digital literacy, financial, work-life skills, and health and wellness. This is you watch videos, and then there are questions and answers. You don't have as much ability to adapt the curriculum like you do for unique learning systems. But it is, if you have a person that's very geared towards using videos and responds well to it, this is a really nice curriculum program. Okay. All right. I have 5 minutes according to my timer. Okay. Um, anything coming up, Diane?
Cheryl, we can wait on the questions, but
Okay.
and don't worry about the time. This is like incredible
Okay.
helpful information. So take
Okay.
your time.
Okay. All right. So the next section, again, looking at our pillars of transition is living independently. And Areeba, she did speak about that as far as the Simply Home, for that remote support. But these are some other things that you can put in. Again, if your person isn't living independently, does not qualify for, or you're not quite ready for those independent remote supports, there are still some other things that can be put in place. Um, some things are, if you have cameras in the home or water sensors. So one of the things that we did is we actually, they're called beehives. They probably are about this big, this big, a little bit like I would say like a dollar coin size. Um, and you just place them anywhere in the house that you think you would get water. So we put some under the sink, we put some near the water heater, and they're attached to an app. And what happens is if there's ever any water leak, and it can be a minuscule amount of water, it doesn't have to be, it's flooded. It could just be just a small trickle of water. You will get notified on your app that there is water that has been sensed under the sink, or water that has been sensed in the basement. So if your person is living in their own apartment or home, and you're concerned about that because my water heater is in the basement, my person never goes into the basement, oh my gosh, there could be a flood going on and we would never know it. These are some really simple things that you can put in. Um, Smart thermostats, those can be really helpful also, especially those that have Wi-Fi control, because you can also set them up that you get an alert if there is a change in the temperature. So say, this past blizzard, power goes out, the temperature is going down in the house, you're going to get an alert that the heat has gone down to 54 degrees in the house. Your person may not have realized that, but you're going to get an alert saying that the temperature is decreased. You can then, call your person, call staff and say, hey, for some reason the thermostat, is showing a very low temperature. Can someone check on this for you? And then smart locks. Some people, just really, physically cannot access a key well. We've broken a couple of keys in our key lock. So switching over to a smart lock does make it a little bit easier, and you also have the ability to change the code on it also, so you don't have to worry about if your person loses their key, and if they have a keychain that has any identifying information. Now that key is out there with the smart lock, you can always change the code on that. Okay. The Echo Show and Echo Dot, these are things that get talked about a lot in the adult services world in terms of um, providing some of that support. It can be very similar to what happens in Simply Home, except you don't have a dedicated staff that it's going to. It's usually, you know, the family can make video calls to a person. Um, we have an Echo Show at home. We actually won it in a raffle, so we did. I don't know, we got lucky, so we didn't have to purchase it. But what we've been doing is we have been using it with our son, so he can kind of get used to it because he does eventually want to move out. So what he's doing is he's using it for his time management system. So we were able to sync his calendar on his um, phone. We were able to sync it with his Echo Show, and we were able to have the reminders turned on so that he gets a reminder that flashes not only on his phone but also on his Echo saying, staff is picking you up at 10 o'clock. So, and we have it in the kitchen because we have an open concept. So the kitchen, living room, dining room, bathroom are all in the same area. So he could hear it from all of those places. He also uses it for his grocery list. Writing is very difficult for him. Speech to text isn't always 100% for him. Um, but he's really good at typing and using the predictive text. So he'll either do it on his phone and it will sync to the Echo, or he'll go right to the Echo and he'll type it in. You can also fit it with if you wanted to fit it up as a smart home. So um, that could be a whole hour session in and of itself in terms of, um, you know, you can have, the smart outlets, which are going to control your lights, which are going to control which can control some appliances. You can have different alarms that are on the door. You can have different alarms that you can have like a mat that goes under your mattress pad that can shake to wake you up as your alarm. There's lots of different ways that you can use those products as a smart home without using something like the remote support services. The biggest difference, though, is that the remote support services, you actually have a person on the other end of the line. When you're using your Echo Shows, you don't have that unless the person is video calling you. There's not that dedicated staff support piece that is available there. Okay. And then the last section I had was related to adapted cooking. Again, this is something that a lot of times I'm working with our students in the 18 to 22 program to get them ready for, again, how can they be as independent as they possibly can in cooking? I truly believe that every person can participate in some way, shape, or form in preparing their meals. And some of the things can be as simple, again, like Areeba said, those low tech to high tech. So some of those low tech can be having those color coded measuring cups and spoons for people to use, using the Echo or your iPad to have recipes read aloud or to show videos of preparing them, using something like a smart chopper. I know a lot of times, my son doesn't like to use an actual knife. We have all these different adapted knives and food choppers so that we don't really have to worry about him cutting himself. It's a more protected way for him to be able to chop up things that are going into his recipe. Um, other things that you can do, I know Areeba, she had showed a picture of it, using things like a Brava oven, which, a lot of times some people get very concerned about, using the stove top or using a traditional oven. Having something like a Brava oven, it's very controlled. You put it in, it automatically turns off. So if you have someone that could be very forgetful about, I put the lasagna in the oven and I may have turned the timer on, but I went downstairs and I forgot about it. And now all of a sudden, oh my gosh, there's a fire happening. The Brava oven it has a timer set on it, so it will turn off. So you don't have to worry about, it being unattended. Um, Another option that you have, and there's a short little video here I'll show you, is using a power link. So a power link, what this does is this allows you, it's a device that allows you to plug in, something like a blender or a toaster, or a light, and it makes it be switch accessible. So if you have someone that's using switch access, this is a really great tool that they can use in their home. So if we have enough time, I can show you with a quick video. Do we have time, Diane? Yeah, okay. So when I'm gonna click on it, it's gonna show an ad first, because that's what YouTube does.
Whoever
Um,
invented this deserves a
so we're
raise.
gonna go through the ad really quick.
2025, and people are still using those old, disgusting
And I'm
stink
gonna
plugs.
skip. Okay. And the volume will come on in a minute.
The PowerLink 4 allows switch users to control up to 2 electrical appliances with single switches. Unique modes of control allow you to define exactly how and for how long appliances will be turned on. The PowerLink will accept any single switch, including a wireless switch. Push the yellow switch to activate the blender. To stop the blender, push the yellow switch again.
And there's different ways that you can, all right, so let me get back to our PowerPoint. There we go. And there are different.
Welcome to the session on the power of the PowerLink. This is
Hold
Mary Fagstetter from AbleNet. I will be your presenter today.
Sorry. And like they said, there's different ways that you can toggle it on. So you can have it so you hit the switch and it stays on for 5 minutes, it stays on for 2 minutes, and then it will turn off. So there's lots of different ways that you can toggle it. And I use this a lot with students in their transition programs. All right. I know that was fast. Any questions, Diane? I don't know, Areeba, if you want to take over if you need to take the controls back.
Okay, so let me go to the chat.
Okay.
All right, so regarding Google Keep, Book Creator,
Yeah.
the different apps that you mentioned, the question is, where can family members go to get training on these?
So again, that's a great question. So if you're using something like your Google products, Google has a lot of great resources online already. In terms of if you just typed in, Google Keep Training, Google, they have a YouTube channel. They have their help center. They also have if you type in Google for accessibility, it will list all of the different accessibility features that are available in Google, whether they're hardware, so they're Chromebooks, or they're Google products. And it has links to all of the training in there. So Google's pretty easy. The same with Book Creator. Book Creator usually, it's a pretty popular program. So on their website, they usually offer video tutorials on that. But again, this goes back to Areeba's point with if you have an assistive technology evaluation, part of that evaluation should include training. So again, when I'm working in the public school system, training is an integral part of that, because if we don't provide the training, then that tool is not getting implemented and it's leading to abandonment. So training is so important part of this process. So I do agree with her in terms of making sure that part of the AT evaluation is not just to identify the tools that are appropriate for the task and the person, but what training needs to happen so that they can successfully use it, and also have the resources to go back and reference it. Because you're not going to have your AT person with you all of the time. So I always make sure that my team always knows if I'm not there, where can you go to troubleshoot? Because it's technology. You're going to have to troubleshoot. It never works 100%. There's always going to be a glitch. So part of that is empowering the person and the family and staff on where to go to troubleshoot it also.
And then there was another question that let's see, regarding DDS funding, using DDS funding to pay for the yearly app subscriptions. Someone did comment utilizing flex spending, the allocation for flex spending. And this is where I think it's really important that the person's ISP, addresses this independent living, right? Being as independent, living as independently as possible, and then the goals. So a lot of that is captured in the ISP, which then will allow you to justify using your budget to pay for these needs. Let's see, how much is the Transition Edge curriculum for families?
Um, that's a good question. You would need to reach out to them because it is a subscription plan. It is a yearly subscription. Unique Learning System is also. When we purchased it, I don't want to misspeak because it was about 8 months ago. But we were also, the other thing is we were also able to do it. They treat us as a homeschool family. So for Unique Learning System and for the Transition Edge, because we're not a school district. I don't need 20 licenses for it. I just need the one license. So they do have what they call homeschool licenses for it. So if you were to reach out to them, they would be able to tell you. I believe it was less than $1,000. I do know that, but the specific amount I can't remember off the top of my head. I don't want to misspeak. I know the lesson picks because I was just at a conference with lesson picks and um, I think they just increased their price from $37 a year to $40 a year or 45, something in that range, which is still significantly cheaper than Boardmaker, and it's a lot easier to use. I am in the chat right now too, and I did see someone that just said, we must remember that some caregivers are nearing 70 years of age, and the tech is not easily self-taught, and that is absolutely 1000% true. So I think that it's important to also identify, are there some other people within your circle of care that that you can reach out to be kind of your tech support person to help you out, as this is being introduced for your person, who within your circle of care you can be my kind of tech go-to person to help me out with all of these things.
Right. And also something to consider when hiring staff,
Mm-hmm.
their skills. Jackie does have her hand up.
Yep.
So Jackie, we want to go to you.
Thank you. And thank you both for this wonderful presentation. It's got my mind thinking about there's so many assistive technology devices that we don't know about and that are coming up new. So Cheryl, I wanted to ask you in terms of working with the schools. So is it enough for a parent to say in the IEP process to simply say, I want my child to have an AT evaluation? Because I think that, they're not knowing what's out there, right? Just we say what, and are schools generally amenable to just asking for that evaluation and then providing whatever supports are identified to help your youngster, become as independent as they are able to become? And does that have to happen later on in their schooling? Because I could see many of these devices could be helpful even for younger children. So just kind of looking at for those who still have children in school to take, definitely, as Areeba said, taking advantage of getting the evaluation done so you're not waiting for this long, amount of time that can happen, but also getting the supports in place while your child's in school. What are parents' rights in terms of being able to request that?
Yep. So parents do have the right, just like they have the right to request any evaluation during that, as part of the IDEA process. Parents have the right to request an assistive technology evaluation. Um, I would say, yeah, it's probably, I've noticed over the years, it's probably about 50-50. Sometimes the request comes directly from the parent and or advocate to the team. And other times it's the team that's said, we've been working with the student. We feel that they would benefit from assistive technology. One of the things, this kind of goes back to, I think, one of the questions that someone had earlier is like about requesting, you can say, okay, I want an AT eval. And my first question is going to be, okay, well, what areas are we looking at? Because as you saw, this is a huge, huge range. So when they're requesting, if you as a parent are requesting an AT evaluation, I strongly recommend that you don't just say, I want an AT eval, because it is too broad. There's so many different things that we can look at. You really want to know what areas do we want to look at. And one of the things that I usually do, like if it comes in very broad, like if they say we want an AT eval and the team says, okay, we're going to do one, sometimes sometimes the school will say, well, before we do an eval, especially if the parents aren't quite sure what they want the eval to focus on, they just want an eval, they'll do what's called an AT consultation. And they'll say, well, let's have our AT person meet with the team to discuss what are the areas of concern, what are we seeing, let's try to focus this in, narrow it down. Let's see, do we already have these tools in place that we can start using with our student right now? Or do we need to do an evaluation for the student? If the families, one of the things, and so when I meet with the team, then I'll kind of go through, all the different AT domains and kind of say, okay, we're going to look at reading, we're going to look at writing, we're going to look at ADLs, we're going to look at vision, we're going to look at mobility, we're going to look at positioning. There is, and I can share this with Diane so she can put this in the PowerPoint or someplace. Ocali, Ohio's assistive technology program, they just recently released a digital, it's called the AT Matrix. And basically what it does is it kind of walks you through the AT process. So if you don't know where to begin, this is a place that you can start. Like what is the task that my person is struggling with? What tools are they already using? And then it's going to go through the different domains, and you as a parent can look at and see, oh, they really struggle with this, and this. So it can give you a place to start. Because if it's too overwhelming, it's too overwhelming. We do need to kind of focus in on that. And I think once you do that, and as far as age ranges, I mean, I do AT evaluations on kids from kindergarten through 22. It's when those services are needed, it's not age dependent. When the family or the team feels that this is something that needs to be explored, that's the time that it needs to be explored.
Thank you. Can I just follow up on that?
Yeah.
When you get an AT evaluation, how long does it last? Like if, let's say you're doing it, is it a couple of years and then they say, oh, it's outdated, or is it like a baseline that never gets outdated?
So, it always gets outdated. It's kind of like a textbook. Once a textbook goes to print, it's usually already old. The great thing about technology is that it is always changing. The bad thing about technology is that it's always changing. Usually for an evaluation, what I usually do is, we have our initial evaluation, and then I'm usually brought in as a consultant. So then we're constantly looking at the AT. And as the students, either their needs are changing, they might have some changes in their disability, then we're always kind of re-looking at it. So I might have to go back in and do another AT evaluation for that student, in 3 years. It might be 5 years. It might be 6 months. It really depends on the situation. But usually how we try to, bridge that is that we do the evaluation, and then as an AT consultant, I'm usually touching base with the team, touching base with the student. I'm usually not a direct service to the student. I'm there for the team so that I can, help with that troubleshooting, but also, if the student's transitioning from middle school to high school and now my academic demands are changing and I'm really struggling with something that I really wasn't struggling with in middle school, but now I'm starting to struggle with it in high school. Okay, well, what AT tools do we need to look at now? So it is always an evolving process. It doesn't mean you have to do a full eval every time, but it is a process that it's not. I've never had an AT where it's been one and done. I guess I don't know if that answers it because the technology is always changing and the person is always changing and growing.
So Cheryl, the AT matrix, is
Yeah.
that one? I know that there are a couple of slides left to your presentation, which includes resources.
Yes, it's not on that. It is not on that. So I can
Okay.
send that to you.
So what I'll do, this is, I'm responding to John Williams' question. What we'll do is we'll add that to the resource page.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if I mentioned this before we started, but MA21 will send out the recording of this webinar along with a copy of the PowerPoint slides. So the AT matrix will be added to Cheryl's resource page that you will see at the end of her presentation. There's a question, how many AT remote supports evaluators does DDS have? So Cheryl and Areeba do not work for DDS. Areeba is with the Northeast Arc, and Cheryl is an independent consultant.
I could speak a little bit to it. So DDS had AT providers. It has about 10 plus, but that's all over the state. For remote support providers, I can speak to the Northeast region of Massachusetts, which is only one, and that's the Northeast Arc. So my assumption, I'm not 100% sure, is that each region, like the Southeast, probably has one remote provider. Um, but in terms of AT providers, there's quite a few per region.
Thank you for providing that information, Areeba. So what we can do is we can stop sharing the screen. And I just want to make sure that everyone understands that if you have another question, by all means, just go ahead and speak up or raise your hand, and we can certainly address that. We have about 9 minutes left, so I did want to mention about the MA21 Action Group. This is a group that meets on a monthly basis. It is usually the third Thursday of the month. And what we focus on is really just planning webinars and just, talking about what needs to be done to help implement the Real Lives Law. And it's just an opportunity for us to really share different ideas and strengthen, we hope, to strengthen or be a part of strengthening the self-direction service model. Our next webinar is scheduled for Tuesday, May 19th. Right now, we are working on bringing together a panel to share success stories using the self-directed service model. For a number of years, MA21 has really focused on advocating for the Real Lives Law to be implemented, but also for DDS to have self-direction regulations, which happened in October of 2024. So, the action group, we thought it would be a great idea to really start sharing success stories because self-direction works for many, many people, right? So we want to just share the information as we have been. I also want to encourage everyone to, go to the websites of our partnering organizations, sign up for their email communications. In April, I don't have the date in my mind, but in April, there is the Autism Day at the State House. Any opportunity that you have to share with your legislators about the self-direction service model and how it is working out for your loved one, it only helps our legislators to understand the need for this model to be fully supported. And the Self-Determination Advisory Board, their next meeting is on June 3rd at 10 a.m. And that the information can be found on the DDS website. If you just put in Google DDS SDAB, it will bring you to that web page. So do we have any other questions, or again, we can open it up with even if you want to give any feedback or have ideas for future webinars, we welcome anyone to just speak up. Jackie?
I just wanted to say the date of the Autism Awareness Day is April 8th at the State House. And if anyone is interested and get involved in that advocacy, the ARC has a very robust government affairs program. You can get on our website and learn about, sending texts, letters, thinking about doing a testimony. It's so important right now as the state is struggling to hold on to services, that we have the support from our legislators to keep the budget whole for the programs and resources that we rely on. So thank you.